Hey everybody, welcome to Word of a Woman. I'm Michelle, and this is my first ever video blog. I am here uh, with Phil Shepard, also known as the Whiskey Preacher, and he has been gracious enough to let me use his in-home studio today to do this interview. We just finished up doing an interview where we were in the reverse roles, and he was interviewing me, and you'll get to see that soon here as well as on his blog. Phil, can you tell us where people can find you online?
Yes, you can go to a couple different places. You can go to philshepard.com and kind of get a better feel of who I am, I guess. And then I blog at on Pathos. So if you go to pathos.com and you type in Outlaw Theology, which is the name of my blog there, or Whiskey Preacher, you can find my website on Pathos.
Awesome. Okay, today I'm going to be talking with Phil about chronic pain and how that affects him both personally and as a pastor. Phil and his wife Stephanie are co-founding pastors of a community here in Fort Worth called the Eucatastrophe. I believe you can find them at
.com.
theuc.com.
That's TheEUC.com. So there's two E's in there.
There you go. TheEUC.com. And we found each other through the internet, oddly enough. Actually, my blog, after I started it, I became friends with Kathy Escobar, who lives up in Colorado and is also a fellow blogger and church planter and co-pastor of a community up there called The Refuge. And she was friends with Phil, and the rest, as they say, is history. We are in the same metropolitan area, which has been really cool for our communities. Just knowing there's another group out there doing what you're doing, and
Or as
yeah,
crazy
there's
as
just
you are.
our to have somebody in it with you
Yeah.
is always comforting. Just to know you have community and somebody else who can say, "Oh yeah, me too," um, is really cool. So I guess my first question for you, Phil, is: have you always lived with chronic pain?
No, I haven't always lived with chronic pain. I only recently was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called fibromyalgia. Autoimmune diseases run in my family. My mother is plagued with rheumatoid arthritis, which is a nasty, nasty autoimmune disease that um, affects and disfigures your joints and limits your mobility. And I also have a brother that suffers from that as well. And then, of course, I have another brother who is fighting a completely different other autoimmune disease called Graves' disease. Um, and so I went to a rheumatologist to be tested for lupus, to be tested for rheumatoid arthritis, and her other specialty happens to be fibromyalgia. And thank God I tested negative for lupus and rheumatoid, but she told me I had a very severe case of fibromyalgia, which is unique because I've found out in only the handful of months that I've known that I've had this disease that it's mostly found in women, and that I'm pretty sure I'm the only male patient that my doctor has. And what the disease does is it has me in constant pain all the time. My body never rests. So when I go to sleep at night, my body is always tensed up and it hurts all the time. I, I look like I should be able to lift a sack of potatoes like it's nothing. I'm 6 foot 275, but it's a faceless disease. My body won't allow me to do that anymore. With chronic pain, it also comes with chronic exhaustion and fatigue. I've literally been standing one moment and then can't walk the next. I remember just a handful of weeks ago at one of the worship gatherings at the Uke, I was fine the entire time, and we had about 10 minutes left, and my body gave out. And it's just been difficult to try to figure out what this looks like in life. I've always been in battle with workaholism. I felt like a strong work ethic, but I don't condone being a workaholic. And having fibromyalgia and being a workaholic don't jive together very well. And so as my doctor told me on the day of my diagnosis, that the world that I knew no longer exists, and my world has been turned upside down.
Mm. I guess my next question then would be, as a pastor and a speaker and uh, blogger. I mean, you kind of have your, you know, well, it's wear a lot of hats, a
Yeah,
lot of irons in the fire, whatever phrase
kind
you
of
like to
spread
use
out
for
all over
that.
the place. Yeah,
You have a lot of different interests and a lot of different forms that your ministry takes. And I'm wondering how this diagnosis, at least so far, I mean, I know it's new, so a lot of that is still, you're still figuring that out for yourself, much less being able to tell me. So I understand that you may not be able to give me a full answer, but how do you feel like this has changed or is changing um, those many roles that you've had?
I've had to learn, and I'm learning to prioritize. I have always had a tendency to, like you said, had a lot of irons in the fire. And being a church planner, especially doing churches like we do, you've got to find some um, ways to continue to create and feed your imagination. And so I've been very fortunate to have a community that has commissioned me to go out and be, as they lovely call me, their mascot for the catastrophe. Um,
That's
I don't,
awesome.
I don't know how to necessarily do with that right now, but yes, they call me the Ukes mascot, and so I've been able over the last handful of years to do some speaking at some conferences, do some blogging professionally, and they've just allowed me and pushed me to go do that. With all that saying, having plus a lot of local interests in the Fort Worth community here, I've had just to prioritize. I've had to, um, you know, my physical therapist told me this: you used to do 10 things a day, now you can do 10 things a week, and you've got to figure out what those 10 things are. And that for somebody like me, that's a hard and bitter pill to swallow. And so I'm learning. I'm learning to prioritize. I'm learning to figure out what are the things that I want to focus on. I've been writing recently a lot about what does it mean to have chronic pain? What does it mean to minister with chronic pain and exhaustion and all that stuff? And uh, it's opened a whole new world for me because a lot of people I've found that, especially with a lot of the recent debates about self-assisted suicide and
Sure.
all of these other things, a lot of people are talking and writing about what does it mean to have chronic pain right before death, but nobody's really talking about what does
Yeah.
it mean to
Well,
have chronic pain and live.
right. And like recently in Colorado, medical marijuana and things like that. I mean,
Yeah,
for people with chronic pain, and I know fibromyalgia, just different things. I know that's an. I mean, there's a lot of uh, hot button
yeah.
topics to then be dealt with. So on the one hand, it's obviously very uh, unfortunate situation to find yourself in, for lack of a stronger and better term. Um, but on the other hand, it gives you an opportunity, because of the platform that you have, to give a face to a faceless disease, as you say, or many faceless diseases.
Yeah.
Because I know my grandmother had lupus, and you look fine on the outside, and you may not know this, but we've had many takes. And in a previous take, I'm going to reference that. Yes, I am. Phil said something about as he's sitting here being in pain
Yeah.
and um, feeling intense pain while he's sitting here talking to me, which may not be something that you all are aware of or can perceive. And it, I think, an important and actually uh, maybe the most positive thing from just an outside perspective of knowing somebody in your position is for you to be able to shed light for me on what it's like and how I can better love people in my life who maybe I don't even know at this point have conditions such as fibromyalgia, lupus, obviously rheumatoid arthritis. You can often you can see a little bit more depending on the stage, the advancement of it. But there's several of these types of diseases where you you look fine. You know what I mean? No one would know to look at you if they walk by you in Starbucks.
Yeah.
They aren't going to go, "Oh, that guy looks like he's in pain.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do something for him that would bless it." Nobody's. People are not. You look as healthy as I do sitting here.
Yeah.
Um, I guess then that feeds right into the next question that I had, which was how has living with chronic pain and something that is not changed the way that people treat you, people who know,
Mm.
or even people who maybe don't know and then are made aware. Do you get a lot of, well, you look fine, or
Yeah.
or how has it changed the way people either intimately or not so intimately, how has it changed the way that they relate to you?
I mean, I've had responses as wa- varied as it's just in your head, get over it. Um, Fibromyalgia is not a real disease. It's only recently, in the last couple of years, been actually categorized because there's still so much not known about it
Sure.
as an official autoimmune disease. So not only am I been diagnosed with a disease that there's not a lot known about it, but I'm one of the few males that has it as well. And so, uh, I've had, yeah, like I said, it's just in your head, get over it, to, um, when I told my mother, I waited a couple months before I told my mother, just because I wanted to understand it a little bit more. She was devastated,
Sure.
because I was out of her children, my oldest brother and I'm the youngest, we were the only ones that didn't have an autoimmune disease. And so she automatically feels like, it's her bad genes that gave it
Mm,
to all of us.
yeah, that's tough.
Um, so some people are very supportive. There's a woman who is a part of the uke, who's the one who really pushed me to get tested for it in the first place. She has been living. She's been living with fibromyalgia for the last 14 years. She's a mom. She's a wife. She's an integral part of our community at the Eucatastrophe. She was one of their original seven. If you go to my blog, you can see she did a guest post for me a couple weeks ago, because when I found out that I had fibromyalgia, I told her, well, I don't back down. That's just not my personality. I'm an Enneagram 8, if that makes sense to anybody in your audience. So I'm the challenger, and I wanted to take this head on and talk about it. And in the midst of that, for the first time in 14 years, she's become public about her battle with fibromyalgia, and which is awesome to me.
Yeah.
I mean, she finally feels like she doesn't have to live in hiding anymore.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, in our society, if it doesn't physically look like there's something wrong with you, people want to dismiss that. When they see me, when my body gives out and I'm in, Target or Walmart or wherever, and I have to ride in one of those damn carts that I hate, people look at you weird. People look at you differently.
Sure.
When I have to board a plane earlier, um, with the folks in the wheelchairs and stuff like that, it's pretty humbling.
Sure.
But fortunately, Stephanie, who is my partner in life and helped start the uke with me, and she rides my ass a lot to be able to acknowledge my limitations and to be able to live into those and to be healthy with that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Um, I guess then my next question is sort of, it's like a two-part question. How do you feel that living with chronic, how has it made you more compassionate for people? And also, has do you feel like, I mean, the flip side of that is, has it made you less compassionate for people? Like, people who maybe are not really suffering something, and you're like, dude, suck it up. That's all you're having to deal with? Are you serious? I'm like in raging pain right now, and you're complaining because you're having to wait an extra 5 minutes in line for, you know what I mean? Do you feel like it's made you, yeah, how do you feel like it's made you more compassionate, and how do you feel like it's made you less compassionate?
That's a good question. Um, I I guess seeing my mother, who's been a huge influence in my life, and my father who passed away in '09, that seeing her battle with this and going from being allergic to the first medication they gave her, and it gave her sores all the way from her lips to her stomach,
Mm,
and um, and seeing her battle with that, I feel like a majority of my compassion was already there. And I don't even, that sounds kind of arrogant. I think um, understanding what folks are going through, at least to a certain degree, and being open to where they're at in life, um, has always, not always been there, but it's been developed over the last probably 10 years, watching my mom and knowing. I've had a few other friends that have fibromyalgia, and watched their battle with it. Um, it is. I don't know if it's made me more compassionate, but it has made me even more aware than I was.
sure, maybe that it's more, that there's more of it out there than you maybe even realized.
Yes, absolutely. I don't think it's made me less compassionate for people, because I think we all have a tendency to bitch,
Truth.
uh,
Truth.
about stupid things, and I'm just as guilty of that as anybody. So I don't know if it's made me less compassionate for people.
Oh, that's good.
It's made me on the defense probably more, especially when people are less compassionate towards me or to somebody else who has it.
Mm, that's good.
Um,
Okay, let's see. My next one is, how do you feel like this has changed your, or has it changed your take on the goodness of God?
sure.
How it relates to, or how do you reconcile maybe pain, and chronic pain in particular, as opposed to like, oh, I had surgery
Yeah.
and I'm going to recover, and then I'm going to be back to at least somewhat what I was. Chronic pain is a different thing, and how have you wrestled with that in relationship to the goodness of God?
Yeah. I. That's another great question. People again have been writing a lot about what does it theologically mean to do assisted suicide. What is it? chronic pain at the end of life, but nobody is, again, writing or talking about in relationship to God about living with chronic pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently had the opportunity to speak at Bright Divinity School at their chapel, and I made the comment that I don't think that this is a punishment. I don't think this is how God works.
Yeah,
And
I agree
people
with you.
who believe that it's a punishment for something, I really, can I say bullshit on your show?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yes.
I think it's bullshit that people buy into that because I think a lot of our theology uh, says that because we're experiencing something that was God's will, and that we're either it's been happened for the greater good of the glory of God. I've been told that to you're paying for a sin, and I don't believe any of
Yeah.
that. I think that is like I said bullshit. I just that is just bad theology. I fully embrace uh, that in scripture in the Genesis narrative it says that we were not only made a good creation, but a really good creation.
Amen.
And God never recanted that. Somewhere down the road, people have bought into the idea of the fall, and I don't believe that. I don't believe in original sin. I believe that I'm not saying something didn't happen in the garden that altered our relationship with God, but I don't believe in this idea of the fall.
Right, the
It,
doctrine that has become the fall and
yeah,
the
absolutely.
and original sin as a specific doctrine. I know there's a lot attached to that, and when I know a
Yeah.
lot of people think have different thoughts about that, and that might be something that if you're not really familiar, a lot of us hear these types of phrases at church, or we've grown up with some of that, and like I didn't realize growing up with those particular phrases all of the doctrine and dogma that is attached to those two specific. It's just um, four words, right? The fall and original sin, right?
Yeah.
It's that there's a lot wrapped up in that doctrinally and theologically through church history, and it's something that's been very interesting for me to look into. So maybe you all would like to. That's just a bonus. That's
Okay.
all. My last big question, like I said, is what do you? What's the one big takeaway that you want people to have? That you want people to know that maybe they didn't come to this interview understanding about living with chronic pain? What's the one thing you would tell people?
You never know somebody's story until you invest into it. So, and what I mean by that is that life is more than just a Facebook picture. I love Facebook. I'm a huge Facebooker, Twitter. I love social media. But you have to, it takes time to invest into somebody's story because, and if you don't invest into somebody's story, you don't know what they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
But our culture, especially our church culture, we're in the buckle of the Bible Belt, so church culture is huge here.
Mm-hmm.
And when the first questions people ask you is well, where do you go to church? Well, anywhere else in the U.S. that would be offensive. That you don't know this person well enough to ask. That's a very personal question, but that's the first questions when you meet somebody here. They ask you, and so we are we have been trained to give short snippet answers. So the only thing that we invest into somebody's life is a short answer, a Facebook picture, whatnot. We don't know their actual story and to what they're dealing with, and that is important. I think, and it challenges us who are within the church culture to shed this one answer, or this one snippet question and this one answer to actually, because that becomes very lazy, you know,
Sure.
and uh, investing into people challenges our laziness because it takes effort to be in relationship with people.
Sure.
And I wasn't going to go off on that diatribe, but I think that that's huge because, you know, people who actually know me know the sufferings that I go through every day, and
Sure.
vice versa.
Absolutely. Well, and we all have limited. You have 24 hours in a day, just like everybody else,
Yeah,
7 days in a week, and you have your spouse, and for me, I have kids, and you have the people who are closest to you, and you have these concentric circles going out, and you can only know so many people intimately. And I think because of social media, we talked about earlier, making our world bigger and smaller, in
hmm
that it brings people closer together who might be far away. It also expands things to the point where you know so many more people than you could have ever possibly known prior, pre-internet, for those of us who are older than the internet, which would be both Phil and I.
yes,
um, there were only so many people that you
yeah,
could know and invest in, um, prior to our digital age, which for somebody like me is fascinating and amazing, and I love being able to be connected with more people.
yeah.
I love that,
So do
but
I.
it also stretches us sometimes in ways where you feel like you can't be as involved as you wish you could be.
Or we again have to learn a new language.
Right.
How do you learn to be intimate in 140 characters? How do you
I
learn
like
to
that.
be intimate on a Facebook post? You know, some people have accused me of being too brutally honest and open in social media. However, I think that that is needed.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you.
So instead of blaming the anti-intimacy within social media, this is what I wanted. Again, a tangent that I wasn't planning on going on, but
I love those.
we we've done a lot of them today.
Yes, we have.
We have got to learn a new language and be willing to do that. I remember I got in an argument with another minister who we were in some type of small group, and we the conversation got spawned to should if somebody dies, should somebody keep their Facebook page? And he went on this diatribe and how he thought that that was very lazy and very um, anti-norm, and that it disrespectful, and we should take their Facebook pages down. And then he went on and how, you know, Twitter has made a generation of people who are lazy because they only communicate in 140 characters. And I first told him that my father does not have a tombstone, and Facebook has become his Facebook page has become his virtual memorial.
Right, and people can go on when they remember something,
Yeah.
or share it with people who would see. I totally embrace that. I love that.
And then I said, you know, this is also 140 characters is, you know, you have to learn a new language.
And if
And
you use them right, they can be very powerful. 140
and
characters can
and
be
and,
very powerful.
and before that, it was instant message. You know, some folks may
Yeah.
not even remember instant
Yeah.
message, but that was pre-Twitter,
Yeah.
pre-Facebook,
And it was
and
going to end the world before Facebook ended the world, before Twitter ended the world, before the internet ended the world, before televisions ended the world, before Elvis ruined everything. And
yeah.
yeah.
So again, we've got to continue as we continue to evolve our understanding of one another. We also have to are constantly are having to learn new ways to communicate, new ways to be intimate, and what new ways to find and learn each other's stories. And I think that can
Agreed.
happen.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. Um, okay, moving on to this is something that I wanted to do because many of you may not be familiar with Phil. I know a lot of you in my audience probably are, but many of you may not be. And so I thought we would ask some fun questions. Like, Phil has a lot of tattoos, and I have no tattoos, which so I find them fascinating. And so I want to know, what is your next tattoo, if you have it picked out already.
That's been interesting. I mean, looping back to the chronic pain, that's one of the first triggers I realized that something was wrong. Is just because I got one for the first time in 3 years, and it hurt like hell. Like, I have literally been in the tattoo chair. The longest session I ever did in a 48-hour period, I was just shy of 20 hours.
Holy cow.
And, you know, that was just okay with me. I mean, when I was in seminary, I would bring my homework, and Brian would be working on my arm, and I'd take naps sometimes. Whatever. So I don't know. I'm going to experiment with that. I really, really want to get. One of my mentors recently died, and he was this very liberal um, disciples of Christ minister who happened to, I can tell the story now, happened to have uh, the original painting that's inside the New Living Translation Bible of the doves. I don't know if you ever remember if seeing that.
Vaguely, yeah.
And he had the original painting because his buddy who owned it, um, he was getting ready to be ostracized. Let me go back. I recently had another mentor just pass away, and he had this amazing painting in his office of these doves, and it's actually was in the original version of the, I think, the New Living Translation, and in memorial to him, I want to get it on my neck. All this has to do with my father passing. I've got a space for when my mom passes, but I want to put back here that painting in the
Mm,
in
very
memory of
interesting.
him. And then I'm always thinking of new stuff. I want to get um, a chest piece that has three sparrows, which is a very common in the tattoo world. The sparrow is goes back to when Navy guys were getting tattoos all the time. But I want it to be holding a banner that says "Embrace Beauty," because at the end of every worship gathering at the youth, that's the last thing we say is "Love the Creator, love the creation, embrace beauty."
Love that. We have something on our website at Novitas that says we have all truth is God's truth, and we also have all beauty is God's beauty.
Yeah,
So I
that's
love that.
awesome.
I like that. That's great. Um, okay. Here's another one. I know that you're on the gluten free, either willingly or unwillingly, or having it foisted upon you. But what is the one food that, if you could add it back in without any penalty, that you could add it back in and be able to eat that along with your gluten? What's the one thing you would add back in?
Well, it's not even purposeful. I had lap band surgery 3 or 4 years ago. I'm a large man now, but I was really large. I was 450 pounds, so I've lost over 150
Oh, that's
pounds.
awesome! Congratulations.
And but
It's hard.
it limits my carbohydrate intake, and I can't drink anything fizzy.
Mm.
And I miss beer, and that was a
Ah,
food for me.
yeah.
So I may be the whiskey preacher, and I love good whiskey, but I really miss
So if
a
you could add the
Guinness,
beer back in, have it,
specifically Guinness.
that would be it. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. That's a good. I could see that. I could see that. And let's see. If you were not the whiskey preacher,
Uh huh.
you were not a fat. What would you? What's the thing that, like, maybe when you were a kid, or that, like, if you could, move, rock star, whatever. What's the thing that you would be doing or that you would want to be doing if you weren't doing what you do?
Yeah, if I could sing, I would be a professional musician. That
Yeah.
is my love. I'm the only one out of my brothers who can't sing, and I hate it because music is so much a part of my life.
Yeah.
Good music is so much a part of my life. You're going to Mumford and Sons, and I'm really
Mm,
kind of jealous and pissed off that you're getting to
yeah.
go.
And I wish I had known. Maybe we could have worked something out. But I guess my last. No, I have two more.
Okay, I like the
Um,
fun questions.
yeah. Well, no, three more. This
Okay.
one's easy. Last meal. Maybe it's not easy. That's a tough one for me. So many good things.
Wow. With or without the lap man?
Oh, without. I mean, you're
Oh.
gonna die. This is the last thing
Oh
you're gonna
wow.
eat. You will have no repercussions, no
Um,
limitations on what you can eat.
Either Guido's Pizza from Anchorage, Alaska, or
Mm.
Milano's Pizza from Anchorage, Alaska. I
With a Guinness.
with a Guinness and probably some of my mom's peach cobbler
Mm.
with some ice cream on top. Oh God, that would be amazing.
There we go. That's a good one.
Oh, making
And
me
then
hungry.
three things you can't do without.
Stephanie,
Of course. I should
enter.
always next mental note for the next interview. Always exempt the spouse from that question. So
um, internet,
mm,
and probably my dogs.
mm. Yeah, I'm
We
with you
have
on that. That's a good one.
three amazing dogs, two bull
Make them
mastiffs and one English bulldog. So
awesome. Well, that's all I've got, and it's been awesome sharing this interview with Phil and with you guys. And who knows, maybe there will be another one sometime in the future. Maybe I'll do this again if you guys like it. So
thanks for
let me
having me.
know. Hi. Oh, be sure to leave comments and go see Phil on Pathios or on Facebook or Twitter at Whiskey Preacher.
Nope,
No?
at Phil Shepard. I
At Phil
actually got
Shepard.
on Twitter in the very beginning and actually had my name as my Twitter handle.
There you go.
And you can also visit philshepard.com. Check me out there. Hashtag Whiskey Preacher if you do this on Twitter, have this conversation.
Awesome.
You can go to Facebook, and I have a Whiskey Preacher page there too. So thank you so
Awesome.
much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me use all your equipment and stuff. Bye, everybody.
Bye.